The question is this: those people who say, well, if innocent civilians are going to get killed, and though you don't want it, and we don't want it either, yes, but that means that Hamas has immunity, that you can't defend your own people, you can't protect your border, you can't safeguard the security of your country because innocent people might get killed.
So tell me then, Mr. Regev, no doubt the support you've had today, unqualified support pretty much from America, that will be very welcome to you and the government for which you speak. Will the Israeli government now listen and act on Antony Blinken's call to do everything possible to avoid innocent casualties and deaths when the invasion begins?
So first of all, we've been very thankful of the US and the UK position, which has been one of unequivocal support. Your foreign secretary was in Israel yesterday, and today the Secretary of State of the United States. And this sort of support is greatly appreciated in Israel, especially since the country is hurting.
Yes.
Let's be clear, we've gone through a very, very difficult period. It started on Saturday morning, and the sort of violence inflicted upon Israel, upon our people, is unprecedented. And I use that word, I think, correctly. We've never seen a situation where some 1,500 terrorists storm the border, cross into Israel, and start killing people randomly. And from Israelis' perspective, of course, there are a lot of questions we're asking. How was it possible that our intelligence services didn't know about this in advance? And how was our army quick enough to act to intercept this when it happened? And so there's a lot of soul searching, there's a lot of anger, and it's a crisis.
Indeed.
Now, I think it's also important for me to say the following. There are a lot of people, we've had since Hamas took over Gaza 16 years ago, there's been intermittent escalations of violence, and we've called them different operations over the years, yes? What have there been, 5 or 6 of them? But this is not another one. This is not more of the same. When Hamas attacked Israel on Saturday morning, they declared war. Now, it's a war that we didn't want. But they've started it, and we will finish it, and we will finish it on our terms. We won't go back to square one. We won't go back to Saturday morning before they attacked. That is a reality that Israel refuses to live with.
Well, that is as clear as far as it goes, Mr. Regev. It was not a conflict, not a war that you sought, not a war that you wanted. And again, all sympathy to the people of your country for what they've endured at this awful time, the friends and loved ones, the families of those who've been taken hostage and those who've lost loved ones in that appalling, barbaric terrorist attack. But you are not now at war with the Palestinian people as a whole, are you? And the Secretary of State for the United States felt it necessary to make the point that those innocent lives mattered, that there should be restraints. I wonder how that will affect your thinking about what comes next, what may change as a result of those entreaties from America.
So we had good meetings today with the American side, and there'll be meetings again tomorrow. I would say the following. I'd ask the Americans, and I would ask the Brits as well, what would you be doing under similar circumstances? What would you be doing if a terrorist group had killed 1,200 of your own citizens? Would it be business as usual? Would you say, oh, let's have a ceasefire? Or would you rightly demand to act to neutralize the threat? And I think anyone who doesn't think Israel doesn't have a moral obligation to its people to eliminate the threat that Hamas poses, I think doesn't understand reality.
Does that answer then mean, Mr. Regev, that you believe innocents in Palestine will die, perhaps in numbers, but that is the fault of Hamas and not yourself?
That's correct. What you've just said is correct. But there hasn't, unfortunately, there's not been a war in modern history where, unfortunately, innocent people haven't been caught up in the fighting.
Yes.
Britain has been involved in wars, from the struggle against Milosevic in Yugoslavia to more recently in Iraq, in Afghanistan. And you're a democratic country, but in the battles that you've taken place, innocent civilians have been killed.
Yeah.
The question is this: those people who say, well, if innocent civilians are going to get killed, and though you don't want it, and we don't want it either, yes, but that means that Hamas has immunity, that you can't defend your own people, you can't protect your border, you can't safeguard the security of your country because innocent people might get killed. That's a standard no one keeps. And why put Israel on a standard that no one else has to keep?
Well, I mean, again, as you put it, though, that is a fair point. But it seems to be a sad inevitability that innocent men, women, and children will be killed in what follows. Now, the question is, how far can you avoid that? Now, it is also known, it is part of the appalling modus operandum of Hamas that they shield themselves with innocent Palestinians. In those circumstances, given that they will use people as their own people as human shields, will you be acting to avoid innocent deaths in those circumstances? Or do you go ahead, you target Hamas wherever and whenever you can, and let the innocent deaths pile up and let Hamas bear responsibility? Is it that which is your ultimate point?
Well, first of all, on the larger moral side, it's clear Hamas bears responsibility. First of all, they started the war. And none of this violence would be happening had that not happened. Secondly, as you know, they not only deliberately target Israeli civilians, which is a war crime, but at the same time, they've deliberately positioned parts of their military machine inside civilian areas of Gaza. And so they're using Gaza's civilians as a human shield, yes, which is also a war crime. So yes, you can say Hamas is committing a double war crime. Now, Israel will not target the innocent civilian population of Gaza. We will target Hamas. Yes. We must target Hamas. I think it's imperative, and I can explain later if you're interested why I think it's imperative that we hit Hamas very, very hard. My Prime Minister said today in the press conference with Anthony Blinken, with the American Secretary of State, he said we will crush Hamas.
Yeah, he has just said, your leader has just said, it's the intention to attack Hamas in the same way as ISIS, presumably just seen as an implacable foe to be attacked with the maximum possible strength. But you're telling me innocents will die. That is inevitable. You simply see that. Look, you don't use the phrase, but in these circumstances, the phrase collateral damage comes to mind, however tragic. And you're not disputing that conclusion. Could I also ask you, how would you explain, if you could, to those watching from outside, those who have maximum sympathy for Israel at this time, how the siege of Gaza will help achieve the end you want to achieve? In fact, what is the aim of the siege of Gaza? Cutting off water, electricity, fuel, food and medical supplies. What do you hope to achieve?
Can I challenge you, with your permission and respectfully? When you launched a war against Milosevic over Kosovo, and at the time the British government said this was a humanitarian operation, how many innocent Serbian civilians were killed?
Yes.
Was that talked about at all? In other words, once again, I ask you, is Israel being held to a standard that others are not? Now, we're not targeting innocent civilians, but to tell Israel we can't respond to violence, terrible violence, horrific violence, barbaric violence that was perpetrated against our people, I'm sorry, I don't accept it. I don't think it's moral. I don't think it's correct according to the way international relations are conducted. We have been attacked. You cannot deny us our right to protect ourselves. And can I want to say something that's important. We have to hit back hard against Hamas for two reasons. Reason number one is we have to change the reality in Gaza. I said before, we're not going to go back to square one. We don't agree to live in the way we lived until Saturday morning. In other words, we're going to come out of this operation and Hamas is going to be crushed, and there will not be terrorists in Gaza with either the desire or the capability to inflict the sort of attack that we underwent on Saturday morning.
Yes.
But there's also another reason we have to hit back hard, and that is the Middle East. We have many friends today in the Arab world, but unfortunately there are still enemies. There's Hezbollah in Lebanon. There's Iran just over the horizon. If they see weakness, if they don't see a determined Israel, if they don't see Israel showing strength, what lesson do they learn? If you can hit Israel with impunity, what is the lesson? We're just going to have more and more attacks. It's crucial. If they started this, we're going to finish it, and they are going to lose decisively. We are going to crush Hamas. And Hezbollah will see that, and Iran will see that, and hopefully they will understand. You attack Israel, you pay a price. It's not in your interest to attack Israel.
Okay, and let me be clear. I'm not taking a position here. I'm simply seeking to explore yours, and I'm sure you understand that. I mean, our time is running very short. But let me just ask the question I began to put a moment ago. Could you just very briefly, if you could, explain to us what the siege of Gaza, the cutting off of vital supplies, from your point of view, what is it intended to achieve and how?
So Israel pulled out of the Gaza Strip, as you know, in 2005. We took down all the settlements and we pulled back to the recognized international border, what is called the 1967 lines. And there's actually no reason, there's no Israeli occupation of Gaza. We're not there. Hamas runs the place, unfortunately. And yet they continue with violence against Israel. All these attacks were conducted against Israel proper, not against any settlements. And so it must be understood, when they attacked us, they declared war. So I would ask you, they've declared war, and then they say business as usual. You've got to keep supplying electricity. You've got to keep supplying water. I can tell you straight out, our Israeli public would not stand for that. No. They've come and they've killed our people. They've brutalized our people. And you've heard the stories. I don't have to go into details about the children that were slaughtered and the young people at the music concert who were massacred and the people who were taken hostage and kidnapped. I don't have to go into all that, but you can understand you can't expect business as usual to follow that. And once again, Hamas initiated this round of fighting. Hamas has declared war on Israel, and yet we're supposed to supply them with water and electricity. What's the logic?
Okay, I hear your message very, very, very clearly.
Can I just add one half sentence? I understand we're short of time, but one small sentence. Hamas rockets damaged severely the electric lines to Gaza. So what they're basically saying is Israel has to now, under the fire of their rockets, rebuild the lines that they destroyed so they can have power. What is the logic?
Okay, you will not facilitate that. You consider you are at a state of, for all intents and purposes, in a state of war. Last question then. I know you are pressed, and thank you for the time you've given us. Is a deal on the release of hostages, of the Israeli hostages, conceivably possible, whether involving Qatar or Egypt, possibly involving the swapping of prisoners? Is that remotely likely or on the table?
So on the hostages, I'll say two things. One, we are watching, and any Hamas person who harms a hostage, we will find them and we will punish them. They will not get away. That's message number one. Number two, under any understanding of international law, this taking of civilian hostages is illegal, and they should all be released immediately, unconditionally, and safely. And that's the bottom line.
Okay, and I take it from that you have no intention of discussing even the possibility of any kind of agreement or deal.
What I said is the truth. They should all be released immediately and unconditionally.
All right. Mark Regev, a newly reappointed spokesman for the Israeli government under Benjamin Netanyahu. Thank you for joining us on Times Radio Drive this afternoon.